To start this off, since I forgot this, I've always talked about how, well, I mean, now because people are without natural affection, now they like really admit that they don't give a crap about babies, and a lot of people admit that like they'll take out their kids and there's the F them kids stuff and all that. But people don't really care about babies either, like actual babies. I'm not talking about like people calling like teenagers and people in their 20s, none of that. I'm talking about like actual infants. People just think that they're cute. They don't really give a crap about them. People typically don't even really want their kids in the first place. People always say I want a baby because they want a robot doll to dress up and play with and use and get to look cute and give them attention. But they don't want to like actually like raise an adult. They want somebody to like even use until they die to like be their surrogate spouse and stuff like that.
So I just thought about a good concept that I've been trying to explain but haven't really been able to like put the words to it, kind of.
Once you become a street kid, you're really hit in the face with the fact that nobody cares. You already were in your previous situation, but I feel like once you like find a few people that actually like give you some advice, maybe mentor you a little bit, and like tell you that like, I mean, yeah, what's happening is what it is, and like it is bad, and I understand, and I'm going through the same thing or have been. They give you this idea that like it's a family thing, not a societal issue, even though abuse is normalized and most people go to it to the point where like they don't see anything wrong with it. You're made to feel like once you get out here, somebody's gonna care, and you're gonna all of a sudden be seen as a human that you're never gonna be seen as and never have been. That you're no longer gonna be seen as a subhuman. Even though the reality is that once you get out here, now you're just a homeless bum man or woman. That's all it really is. And people actually more overtly will admit now that they don't care about you because now you're just the bum. In your abuse situation, sometimes people just play this, oh, I just didn't believe you, don't believe you game. But you're made to feel like things are going to be different, but actually it's a societal issue and nobody's ever going to care.
One of the things about being in an abuse situation is that,
I don't know, I feel like it's still kind of different if you go through cash for kid system abuse and the human cash cow systems as a whole, because like you're still reminded that like random people play enabler, flying monkey, and take part in your abuse, including cash for kids system staff, but even like all the bystander people where it's none of their business and they don't know what to do about that, or mostly they just tell you it's your fault because it's discipline and you deserve it for whatever reason. But still to a certain extent,
you're made to feel like the outside world just doesn't know. People pretend to like not know, because as I have talked about since the Abuse Evidence channels, people will pretend not to believe you as an excuse to not help because they really don't care. And that's why I always say, once I went from NC to GA, and all of the mandated reporters and even other random people would admit that what was going on was really obvious and that they didn't believe my abuser, they just didn't want to get involved. That's when things really hit the fan more, because as you eventually come to the conclusion, if you don't have like too much cognitive dissonance anyways, nobody cares about anybody and there is no help. You save yourself. Anybody that's ever gotten anywhere saved themselves. But anywho, it's easier to like pretend or think or be convinced that there's somebody out there that really cares and that people really do care. But once you get kicked out or you escape whatever abuse situation and you just become another quote-unquote homeless bum, it's even more obvious of the fact that nobody cares because you're kind of like right there in everybody's face. And now, of course, I don't expect or want anything from anybody. I already know that the idea of help isn't realistic or a real thing, and people don't even like or want their own kids. Not to mention, I wouldn't even feel like comfortable running up in somebody's house, among all the other things I could say with that. But it's like, it's easy for people to push this idea down your throat that somebody cares, there's help, when you're like, I don't know, locked up in a cage in like a basement somewhere, just like locked up in a house or whatever, being abused. But like, once you really get to see like how much in society nobody actually cares about anybody, and like you get to see that like everybody's like a bystander and stuff like that, you can't really believe like a lot of this, oh, people only care about this age or that age, or, well, I mean, for the gender thing, people do like generally try to act like things only happen to women and girls, which I may go into that if I remember, because that's a big part of the minor crisis and the overall fake social justice warrior stuff going on now. It's mostly like women making it about them and only them. But wait a minute. So like, I'm not gonna read these posts because then this will be way too long, and like I go on really long rants anyways.
Going over the whole, oh, I'm not a minor anymore, so it's okay now thing, this goes back to the idea that the word quote-unquote pedo even has anything to do with who is or isn't a minor, even though the age of consent is under the legal adult age anyways. And it's like, pederasty is pederasty, being a chomo is being a chomo. Something, I mean, I don't even know how to put it. This goes back to how, like, with Asian obsession, which is actually very much ran by chomos and people that are just overall brainwashed and easily manipulated. It does nothing but normalize perversion up to a certain extent, and that's supposedly because these people aren't getting charged or going to jail anyways. But it's like, a chomo is still a chomo, and like this, pedo stuff has really confused people. The word is used wrong anyways. It has nothing to do with who is or isn't 18. It's actually about people who haven't even started puberty. But being a chomo still very much extends. And it's like people are also made to feel like in fact, it makes me think about something that somebody said. They said that it seems like old people are now more attracted to them now that they're 20 or 21 or the age of consent is below 18 anyway. So like 16, 18, stuff like that. And that now it's supposed to be okay. In fact, like that dude was saying in that video that I mention all the time, that's somewhere in the predatory playlist, and it has like live example videos where he's like, 17 is legal, so you can't act like I'm weird for. But that's the thing though, normalizing perversion up to a certain extent, it's not any better or any less wrong. People can like people are really like playing a lot of mind games with this. I mean, yeah, when it comes to SRA, using anybody for ritual abuse is always going to be bad. When it comes to SA, it's always going to be bad. When it comes to like doing stuff to somebody that isn't even developed enough to like even be having quote unquote sex anyways, yeah, that's like really horrible, and that's like a really bad ritual that messes people up and causes like a lot of things and can even be deadly for them. But generally wrong is wrong. People are like trying to like chop up wrong into like this like weird ageist stuff of like, okay, so we're gonna like SA people who are like 17 on up, but then it's like it's whatever, just this weird stuff. And also generally, like especially when I think about that person's comment about how it seems like older guys hit on them more now that they're 20 or things like that, I would say that one of the things about that is because like they probably feel like it's less likely for you to like run and go tell somebody, for someone to like do something, or maybe for you to like be, well, I don't know, I can't really say that in this society, but like if people feel like maybe you're less likely to like run and go tell somebody or to have somebody to tell, or like if people just feel like they're gonna be able to easily manipulate you into something, and that since like you're an adult, if somebody did want something, they're not gonna be able to say, well, I don't want my kid with that person. Kind of like how like the guys that were talking about how they try to like get with younger people and how even 28 is a danger zone, and then like this one dude was like, well, you're not going to be getting with my 18-year-old daughter or something like that when you're 45 and things like that, and the guys are like, well, she's an adult, so you're not going to be able to tell her what to do and what not to do anyways. They just feel like it's going to be easier for them to get away with whatever they're about to do. That's why they'll often like spend some years grooming, and then once you're a legal adult, then they'll run off into the sunset with you, or well, they'll get you to run off into the sunset with them, because now they feel like, well, nobody could possibly do anything. That's all that's about. That's why even though the age of consent is well below 18, they'll still often like do the whole manipulate you and groom you till 18, because now you're a legal adult, and now they can like run off into the sunset with you and possibly not get sued.
I know there was this one post where this one guy was saying that like when they were I guess when they were like school age, people cared so much about their abuse or claimed to, but then once they graduated high school, then people are like, okay, just get a job, none of that matters anymore. I would honestly say that that's kind of rare, because generally people will admit that they don't care regardless. In fact, one of the things is that when you're living with your parents, I was going to say when you're under 18, but not even really that, when you're living with your parents, due to like all the flipped around religious doctrine that's ingrained into society, you're always going to hear this honor your parents stuff and be told that like whatever's happening to you is just discipline, or that's none of anybody's business, or keep that to yourself, or stop complaining and be happy and be grateful and listen to your parents, all that stuff. Typically that's how it's gonna go. In fact, one of the things with I don't even like using the word, I take anybody who uses the word minor with a grain of salt, to be honest, but one of the things with the minor label is that it's made for abusers by abusers. It's a very ageist term, and when you're a quote-unquote minor, just a kid in general, even 18 plus, that's always what's used against you and used to tell you that you deserve your abuse because you're a quote-unquote child. And there's a lot that I could say about that, and it's all really biased anyways. As I've always said, even since before the abuse evidence channels, like, you're a child until anyways, like if you supposedly commit a crime, then you're grown and you're going to be locked up
in adult prison, which you're just going to be essayed by the staff in a kid prison anyway.
Or I even talk about how the most I've ever been told that I'm a grown ASS woman
in my life has been since running away and being homeless, because like it makes people feel better about doing certain things to you and treating you certain ways. People always jump to the sexual predator side, but that's not even always it. Where I'm at now, people just automatically assume that I'm like decades older due to like a lot of stereotypes about ageism and how I'm supposed to be, what they think about me, and also how they make convinced that like people can't take care of themselves unless they're like 38 apparently. But especially when I was in Cali, it was always like on some racial stuff and trying to make themselves feel better about treating me funny, or well, not even funny, bad. Even before running away, I was like always pretty neglected and adultified and told that like I'm grown, but there was also still the whole you're a child thing till this day, unfortunately, which is also sometimes some people's one of the many reasons why I shouldn't be out here and I should be quote unquote going home like I need to be, because there's supposedly some warm bed waiting for me somewhere, which I still haven't made that video. That situation was recent among the other similar ones recently.
Like, the most I've been referred to as like a grown ASS woman, quote unquote.
The 50-year-olds who want to get with me, or well, the first situation I remember, he's 53. He was a boy. Another one was a young man, but I'm a grown ASS woman. But still, the sexual side isn't even that common. I mean, it happens often, but like in the beginning, at least of being out here, it was more so just an excuse to make people feel better about treating me bad, as if an older person deserves it either. And while you do become a man or woman at 13 to 16, it was still funny, especially with the 53-year-old thing, that like at the time it was convenient for me to be a 16-year-old grown ASS woman, but for them to be a 53-year-old boy. But it wasn't convenient for me to have rights then and to not have to like run away and hide.
My main 2 videos about how street kids aren't seen as kids, but I talk about that all the time. And even like in the previous abuse situation, before you escape or get kicked out, of course, obviously, if you're a foster kid, you already know that you're only a quote-unquote kid or quote-unquote child if you're somebody's child. Other than that, you're obviously not. It's all really biased. You're, what I always say, you're a child until somebody wants to have sex with you. You're a child until somebody wants to lock you up or blame you for something. And I know that, like, especially where I am now, like, people are gonna generally assume that I'm, like, decades older than I actually am, at least supposedly. I even had a lady tell me last Tuesday that somebody told her I was 38, and she said there's no way. And there's a lot that I could say about that. But it's also, like, what people rather believe, but it's a lot of mess with that. But, like, generally, especially with the minor crisis, the lines with this is being even more blurred. But overall, people don't care, and they never did care. And I would say that one of the bad things about society, especially with like the social justice warrior stuff, is that like, just like with the predator catching, as I always talk about and have conversations with people about, it's like people will do everything but help actual victims because they don't want to be involved with that, and they know that actually helping people isn't necessarily legal. But I always say, if the predatory people are always there to help somebody, give somebody a ride to school, give a place to stay to like a street kid, if they're always willing to do it and they're always able to do it, the only reason that people who are actually safe, supposedly mentally healthy, financially stable, the only reason that people like that really don't help is because there is no help and they don't want to get involved. They don't want to take on the burden. They don't want to be involved in all the drama. As this one girl had even said to me, they don't want to be involved in all the drama that revolves around somebody's bad situation and even the possible or supposed danger. Which I'm not even going to go into that. That gives me flashbacks even just talking about the quote-unquote danger that really didn't exist. But people claim to be so scared of my abusers. In fact, one of the funny things since running away is actually realizing that they really had no power. But it was just like, human cash cow system staff, they get paid to help your abusers. But not even necessarily for your abusers. It's really like due to their own sadisticness. Like, I really don't even know how to explain it, but like I know I even had this one post where I talk about how, especially when it came to the medical system, it's not really that my quote-unquote mom had really any power. They were trying to act like they were doing things because of or for my mom, but it was really like in spite of, I guess I could say, because they were going to do it anyways, but they could use her as like the smoke and mirror. Like, for example, oh, you have really, really low blood sugars and we don't even know how you walk in here, but we can't do anything about it because you're mom. And it honestly wasn't even always necessarily true that my mom didn't want them to treat me. That actually, like, there's a lot of stuff that's really hard to explain, but like they're trying to make things about like the Munchausen and stuff, but it really didn't have anything to do with it. They really just wanted to kill me, but they would like try to claim that even these conversations were happening with my mom that probably weren't even happening, where she supposed was telling them like not to worry about stuff, but it doesn't really matter anyways. But they were doing things for themselves in spite of her. It doesn't even make sense, but trying to blame her for stuff that she really had nothing to do with. The overall thing is that, like, especially with the minor crisis, people are now claiming to care about things that nobody has ever cared about. The quote-unquote pedo stuff, which that's normal and normalized anyway since ancient times, so that's kind of whatever, but people are claiming to care about that, even though the issues that are really being spoken about, that have been spoken about for decades, that people have been shut up and called liars and crazy for, because people don't care about actual victims, especially if they're not a woman. And I've always said, since before the abuse evidence channels, there is no such thing as women and children. At least for now, women have rights, youth don't. So that can just, especially with like, I mean, women have so much power over the youth anyways. Like, nobody gets away with things more than a parent in general, but a woman or an evil mom. So they can just shut up with that women and children stuff. I've always said that. I've never cared for any of that. Women even have rights to take out their own baby, in spite of whatever the man says and what decision he wants. But a kid can't do that same thing the other way around, even in self-defense. And as I've always talked about, people always try to like put supposed quote-unquote pedos on a pedestal and stuff like that. to try to fearmonger people into not escaping abuse situations by telling you, oh, the sexual predator this, the sexual predator that, which is all bull crap. Because, like, I've noticed, especially, like, in southern and quote-unquote black areas, like, so many people, they have this, like, girls are hoes and fast mentality anyways. And, like, only once I come back to the south, or maybe sometimes just, like, melanated areas, do I, like, the south especially, just in general, do I get these, like, weird accusations that I'm supposedly a fast and grown hoe and I got kicked out, or I ran away to go stay with some grown man because I'm a fast and grown hoe, and I supposedly have a baby somewhere that I guess I threw in the dumpster, even though I doubt that I could even carry a baby. And every 45-plus-year-old man that's within a 100-mile radius of me is my quote-unquote older boyfriend. And also, like, a lot of weird situations where whenever I am getting sexually harassed, like, people around just, like, laugh about it. And I haven't even talked about that, actually. Like, just, like, a few hours ago, I was trying to get this guy to, like, come fight me to get the whole situation over and done with. But, of course, he didn't want to leave the building because he knows that if I try to fight him in there for touching me, then, like, the staff at the resource center are going to, like, call the police and all that stupid stuff, and I'm going to get banned. And so he was, like, trying to play this, oh, now I'm charging my phone game. And people were just, like, laughing about it. But stuff like that. But overall, it's just, like, that even shows that people generally don't care. And people are just so used to this type of stuff, especially in these areas with, like, this high Marine Kingdom demon activity, where there's just, like, so much predatory and perversion stuff going on. And I can make even more videos. I could go into my hypothetically paraphilia and maybe even gerontophile agenda playlist. I don't know. I've just been thinking of this term in my head for probably like a year now. Fags raise fags, which I know that could probably get me banned just saying that. But it's just like people play dumb about. Oh crap! Why are the police here? People play dumb about why, like, everybody's turned out. I mean, crap. Even the whole last running with the cops were like what do you say? He was going to make the rest of my night in life a living hell, and all that crap. Made me lose my whole train of thought. But this even goes back to the point, because I even had this lady tell me, I mean, that's some bull crap, but it's not true. She was talking about the cops are supposed to, like, be helping us and pointing us in the direction of services, and, like, that, I don't know who told her that crap. I remember I asked the cops for a ride once, and they told me that they wouldn't give me a ride anywhere but to jail. And actually, I've been told that by cops more than once while lost or trying to get somewhere. But the moral of the story is that nobody cares, and especially with what's going on now, it's, like, really screwing up a lot of people's heads who are in situations or maybe have been in the past. Because it's, like, it's given this idea that, like, now people all of a sudden care, at least some of them, but people still really don't. It's just like the usual games. People keep you in this illusion that, like, they care, but they never did care. And there's a way that I wanted to say it, but, like, right when I was about to say it, that's when the cops pulled up out of nowhere. So I'm trying to think. The cult of society wants to keep you in this cycle of, oh, somebody would care if, oh, somebody would care, and, oh, somebody would care why. That didn't even make sense. But, like, somebody would care if this, or if that, or if I that. If I was, I mean, the gender bias is a really bad thing. I've always noticed and even been called a misogynist, especially when I was in Cali, for pointing out that, like, certain things are definitely worse for boys, like, especially melanated ones. Like, there's so many reasons why I can never jump on, like, the bandwagons, because all it really does is, like, throw boys and even guys who haven't done anything to anybody and are victims of things themselves under the bus. And the mainstream feminism, at least pushed in America, that's a white supremacist agenda anyway, so. But, like, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, certain things are worse for them, but generally, somebody would care if I was a girl, or somebody would care if I was older. In fact, that's one of the things that you're constantly told. If you were older, somebody would care. But then also there's the fake, somebody would care if I was younger. In fact, I remember, I wish I would have mentioned this earlier, always, since being out here, having people tell me that people care more about me because I'm younger. And that happened a lot when I was in Cali, especially. And it's like, the only thing people did when I was in Cali is call the police on me 24/7, tell me I needed to leave the town. And I was just getting threatened all the time to the point where I had to leave. But, like, I can get why people are made to think this. But the thing that they seem to forget is that, one, most of those people are foster kids. That's why they've been out there. Then they've been homeless their whole life. And then, of course, other people are runaways and kicked out. There's even this 14-year-old boy who was kicked out every other week, and nobody paid attention to him, and he was out there doing substances with people and stuff like that. People are made to forget that nobody ever cared. They're made to feel like once they're older, or even if they're really still a kid, they're made to feel like, oh, well, if you were 7, I would care, but, like, I mean, 16 is working age and stuff like that. It's all a game. And that can even go into, like, the street kids aren't seen as kids thing, or maybe not even really that complex, but even with the recent situation, I was, like, walking into my spot where I hide most of my stuff. Well, not most of my stuff, like,
my sleeping bag and all that. And I was trying to not be seen, but I really needed to put myself up before the rain started or something like that. I can't really remember. Or I was late somewhere. And this one lady who like worked nearby saw me, and then she said that she had actually really noticed me, and she was like, yeah, we didn't know that you were young. We thought that like you were like the older lady, I guess maybe like elderly or something, I don't know. And I have kids your age and all of that bull crap. And it's like, a lot of times when people finally pay attention to that, it's for sexual reasons anyways, weird stuff, but overall it's all bias. Anytime somebody comes at you like that, they don't care. If they cared, they would care regardless. They wouldn't care with like some strings and if, ands, and buts attached. I don't like any of that stuff. Like the same reason I've never liked the whole lazy 40-year-old narrative. I don't like the narrative that like people should only screw the younger people and only supposedly care about the elderly people because they're elderly, and the younger people, they should either go home or get a job or whatever. I only care about the younger people because the older people, they're quote-unquote lazy, whatever bullcrap things people can make up or say. All of that is bullcrap bias, and with bias, it's all fake. If someone really cared, they would care regardless, and that's the thing. A lot of people are being dragged into this mindset right now that now people care, so if I was this or if I was that or if I was a woman, then people would care, but it's all fake. And it's probably all gonna die out soon anyways. And then it's like, with the quote-unquote pedo thing, I always talk about all the issues with like, all of that, but it's also like, that's not even really the issue. What people are mainly talking about right now is SRA, satanic ritual abuse, but of course they're never going to put that name to it because they don't care about the real full issue. But it's also annoying because it's like, it's all decades old information, the same stuff that people have been talking about since the beginning of time, and that people have gotten cursed out, shut up, locked up, called stupid, crazy, and attention seeking for anyways. I mean, crap, like the whole Allie Carter thing, and it's not like Allie Carter's like the first or will be the last to talk about the things that she's been talking about since, I know especially 2020, or 2021, it was something like that. So it's kind of like, it's all just a mess. And then, it's also causing more divide in the whole youth rights scene. Like, I could even say with the gerontophile agenda, it's like divide and conquer against the youth, making you feel like older kids are something to be scared of, and all the weird stuff that's coming behind the gerontophile agenda and the minor crisis. It's really to like split up the youth and keep the youth from coming together to really like come against the grown-ups, I could say, because it's kind of like for example, the whole all of a sudden now, out of the blue, out the woodworks, like now supposedly people 16 or 17 plus are no longer adolescents, and just weird stuff that people are like coming up with to try to like, they act like they're doing it to try to like come against quote unquote pedos, a word that's always used wrong anyways, but it's just like more things to one, adultify youth and like blame them for things and maybe trauma symptoms, or even just to like make people feel weird for talking to people and being friends with people their own age, like claiming that like a 17-year-old is so much more grown than a 16-year-old and all this weird stuff. And it's really just another way to keep like going lower and lower with the age of adultifying people. I even have the whole playlist titled Youth Are Infantilized and Adultified all at the same time, which infantilization isn't about even acknowledging like a kid as a kid. Infantilization is an abuse tactic, actually, to try to like pretty much neglect somebody and keep them from like knowing basic things to be able to take care of themselves or like get out of a bad situation. There's nothing actually good that comes from infantilization, but like the word is now used wrong, and it's just like, it's hard to explain. But and then like people being upset about people acknowledging teenagers as men and women and trying to make it seem like everything is always about a quote-unquote pedo, which that's not what
the word would even mean anyways or have anything to do with, but like it goes back to the whole thing of me saying that SA women run the gerontophile agenda, which actually is them working hand in hand, even unknowingly, with actual chomos, because it's like, since SA women are running the show, they're making things about them and still not really caring about anybody else, or even really their self. And so it's like, how do I put it? Okay, I remember now. So, like, I mention all the time that teenagers aren't children anyways, and even like all the stuff with the American 18 obsession, and like how people are like misconstruing a lot of things and like parroting it along as like correct, but it's still not even the point. I would say that like the overall point is that people are trying to normalize perversion up to a certain extent. And so like when you admit that like teenagers are men and women, like they used to be acknowledged as not even that long ago. I mean, there are still, of course, the usual pro-abuse rhetoric, but I still talk about the whole thing of like people being married by 14 and dropping out of high school to work in factories. Not that that was necessarily like, I mean, there's like some definitely bad points to that, but the fact that like they were able to, it wasn't like a lot of like being held hostage, people becoming nurses at 14 and 15, but all the ageist laws being put into place with the backing that they were quote unquote to protect supposed quote unquote children, and then the whole minor thing as well. And so like when you admit this, people will like throw around the pedo term that people are obsessed with right now that is never ever being used right anyways.
But not everybody who's not running around pretending they're teenagers or 2-year-olds is doing it because they're quote-unquote pedo. People are really just making jokes and making these terms buzzwords anyways. And it's so weird because the actual pedo stuff has been normalized always anyways. And then like people saying things like you need your hard drive checked. All the stuff in people's bad situations is nothing but a joke and buzzwords to people. And another thing with that is that like people even claim that youth do have rights and quote-unquote children do have rights. Anybody that claims to care about abuse and claims to care about SA, but then says that children do have rights whenever somebody says that they don't care, and they're part of the problem.
Water down some abuse situation. I get that a lot of people do that, but it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, calling somebody a child or a quote-unquote minor is used to water down abuse situations and say children are meant to be seen, not heard. What goes on in this house stays in this house. What's the other thing? Just the general idea that like with that screenshot that I always use, you wouldn't ask a shoe if you could put your foot in it, so why would you ask a child if you can have sex with them or something like that? Youth are not seen as human beings, and they're just seen as like less than cattle anyways. So actually calling somebody a young man or young woman would technically if they're really seen that way, it would be used to like give them rights to not be abused and tortured, but it's not being used that way, because even like with the whole street kids aren't seen as kids thing, people claiming that I'm a grown ASS woman quote unquote, they could say that to try to like make themselves feel better about doing or treating me whatever type of way. But if they really saw me as a grown ASS woman, whatever that really means, there's still a lot of things that they would never do or say to me, even generally, because like a lot of sexual predators will admit that they don't like people their age. So like if they really saw me that way, then they wouldn't even like say anything to me or try to get with me. But in the other sense, like I would mention,
in a lot of situations, especially when I was in Cali, like here people claim to think I'm like 38, but in Cali, the example that I use, even though I kept telling people that I'm not 11 or 14, that I'm not a boy, people would still disrespectfully like come at me. And this is before I was even like wearing the Mario hat, so I wasn't wearing any of that then.
Especially like at this pizza place, one of the people that worked there came up to me, and even though they kept claiming that I was like an 11 to 14-year-old boy for whatever stupid dumb reason, they were like, sir, you have to leave. They're gonna approach me with the sir thing because street kids aren't seen as kids. Also like the racial side, and like that would also keep them from like seeing me as like the supposed kid that I'm supposed to be or whatever. Like at the end of that LT Corbiz video that I re-uploaded,
it has a clip of that comedian whose name I can't remember, and he was talking about how old is 15 really and things like that, and something about some black boy that accidentally like took out his friend practicing wrestling moves, and how he wasn't seen as a kid and stuff.
That I titled Job and Ageism something. But it just makes them feel better about treating me like crap if they call me a man or a woman. Like, if they call you a lazy man or a lazy woman, it makes them feel better instead of like calling you like a homeless kid. Like, I've been in so many situations where people be like, this grown woman, to make themselves feel better about like treating me like crap. And like I said, that's more often than even like the sexual predatory side.
But one thing that I have learned a long time ago at this point is that they don't ever like, I won't say they don't say it to actual grown people, but they're not going to approach an actual grown person and say that because they're going to be worried about getting punched in the face or something. So if they really did think you were grown and like they claim to, they really would not do and say a lot of things to you.
So, trying to think about what else to say with that. And then also like people that have been essayed by other kids, especially older kids, now trying to act like, coming out the woodworks trying to act like older kids aren't kids because they were essayed by somebody who was 14 or whatever. And it's like, that's like a really bad thing, but you can't like pretend. It's like, yeah, teenagers aren't children, but like, even with people that aren't even teenagers yet, you still can't like act like that's like a fully grown person because something happened to you. And that's like a big thing that I noticed with like a lot of these women that are like pushing this false care movement. It's really not that they care about other people. They just feel like now it's their time to shine and like make things about them in like the worst way possible. Not even like in a this happened to me so I understand how you feel way. It's like this happened to me so like screw this type of person and screw these dudes and screw these women. And it's like it's all a bunch of bullcrap. It's just like the fake BLM and ALM movement. Nobody gives a crap about anybody. Like I've been saying, I don't even know how else to put it. It's so much weird, like, false care with everything, and that's like how things always are pretty much. Like, people, okay, like for example, when something happens and somebody feels like now it's my time to make this about men, or now it's my time to make this about why I don't like black men, now this is my time to make this about why I don't date other white people, stuff like that that people like to do. It's like, none of it is really about like people actually talking about the real like root issue. It's like always a bunch of bull crap. Like, I even remember like somebody had like took a clip from this Software Underbelly interview with this girl who was a quote-unquote prostitute, which there's no such thing as sex work anyways. It's all abuse and torture. But anywho, they took that clip and then they made it about like about black men, and it's like, see, that's not even like the issue. And then
and also, I'm not doubting like the issues with Negroids and Caucasoids. I always said that like niggers and crackers are like the world's issue, or more so the 13 bloodline families. I'm sure Yahsharael are kind of like the cause of all the world's problems in ways. And there's a lot of stuff with them. There definitely is like a lot of like generational and cultural issues, but it's like people are just taking their eyes off the real point. Nobody's taking accountability. They're making it about other stuff, using it to put other people down, using all this stuff to like leave people out and throw somebody else under the...
Or that recent scenario with the 19-year-old girl who's been missing since 10 because she had to run away from whatever abuse situation, and she popped up supposedly committing domestic violence, quote-unquote, against her 54-year-old quote-unquote boyfriend. That whole situation.
Because abused kids always get charges pressed on them by their abusers for their own abuse. And so like this dude, the same one that makes like some of these bullcrappy like reactions to the Nova and Tania situation, those videos, like
he was talking about some, and you think we're about to let you get away with doing this to this black girl. And it's like, well, nobody gave a crap about that black girl when she had to run away from her abusive black family at 10. So like now all of a sudden that she's with some 54-year-old white man getting beat up by him, now people supposedly care. Like, it's just, people are just so like, what in the world? Like, I don't even know what to even say about it. I guess going back to the whole street kid thing, or maybe just like homelessness in general, I know, or at least I think I've mentioned before, that like the longer someone's homeless, even going along with the longer wait they have till 18, the more likely they are to be stuck homeless due to like different things with how they're going to be treated and how they're going to get more trauma and losing vital records, never having them in the first place, stuff like that. And like, for example, somebody got kicked out at 12 or 14. They've been out there the whole time and nobody ever gave a crap. Nobody wanted to get involved. People say things like, well, they're hiding from somebody, or you don't know what they did to get kicked out, stuff like that.
And now they look up and now they're like 45 or whatever. Like, people will pretend, oh, if you were younger, I would care. But no, you really wouldn't, because, like, I can't even say that necessarily they missed them when they were younger. They wouldn't have helped then. Like, especially at that point in time, for a lot of people, it's all about laying low till 18, because people are going to want to turn you in to the police to be sent back to your abuse, because like the fake true crime channel people say, which I have a whole video about that, and I'm not even going to go into that. Like, those people will say, quote unquote, as long as a supposed child isn't at home, they're missing. Like I've said before, people are telling me about all my smear campaigning from these people. I even had this one guy, I can't remember if it was Darkness Exposed or Arctic Fox, but one of them admitted to me that the abusers actually, the abusive parents get them to make the videos and the posts, and sometimes they're even paid. That's really not true, and I feel like even the reporting of runaways, and even people kicking somebody out and reporting them as missing, that's an abuse of the missing persons list. I feel like that should be done away with, and that shouldn't even be allowed. But that could be a whole other video. It just takes away from actual missing people and actual kidnapped people. People, they generally want to, like, keep you on this roller coaster of, like, people feel like they have to chase approval. It's all really fake. If you believe them when they say you're doing good, you're gonna believe them when they say you're doing bad. If you believe them when they say that they would care if, you're gonna believe them coincide with that. But don't let them convince you that they will help you or that they would care if and but. Nobody ever has cared and nobody ever will care. And there's a lot of narratives being pushed out there. And I think that, like, people are even often, if they do get out their bad situation, they actually, like, really get into, like, a better predicament or whatever, or close enough. I feel like people often are made to forget how much nobody ever gave a crap, and then they start to feel like, oh, if only I was still in this situation, somebody would care. Like, I even remember a couple years back when I was in support groups, the online support groups, like during, I could say maybe the part 1 abuse evidence channel, maybe the part 2, maybe the part 3. Then, like, no, definitely not. Well, yeah, probably not the part 1, maybe the part 2 or part 3. And I saw this post in a BPD subreddit or whatever it's called. And this person had made the post, and they were like, the title was something like, does anybody ever wish that, like, something worse would have happened, or that maybe you would have, like, died from your abuse and been on the news so people would have actually cared? And a lot of people are like, yeah, but it's like, it's all fake, though. All the care is fake. If somebody really cared, they would have helped you, and you wouldn't have had to die and be on the news in the first place. You wouldn't, like, you wouldn't have to be the dead kid that was on the roof, which is actually a recent situation that actually happened. You wouldn't have to be the kid found in a dilapidated apartment with the bodies or the skeletons of your deceased siblings. You wouldn't have to be the woman found dead in the freezer in some, I don't know. Or no, you wouldn't have to be the 19-year-old found on live being framed, getting beat on by some 55-year-old dude. If people actually cared in the first place, she wouldn't have had to run away at 10 if people actually cared in the first place. And nobody's going to really help anyways, because only the predatory people are willing to take the supposed risk of helping. And people will say, well, yeah, like, with sexual predators, of course they're, like, gonna help you and, like, gonna be willing to, like, do whatever to hide somebody or, I don't know, give them a ride to school, because, like, they want to have sex with you or whatever. There's something like that people say, but, like, all that is really, like, bull crap. And also, we live in a hypersexual society, so it's, like, it's gonna be hard to come across somebody, male or female, young or older, who doesn't want to have sex and possibly use somebody, or at least have, like, a relationship. And one of the things that I've mentioned before, like, especially with what I like to call the let me help you lunatic complex, is that one of the things about it is that, one, people that go into the dark side or the light side, I guess I could say, or just, like, certain types of people are generally clairvoyant, and they can, like, sense when something's going on anyways. But there's also the side that, like, they've been in the same predicament before, so they, like, they know what to look for. Like, for the pimp is, like, willing to, I mean, of course it's fake help because there is no help, which I'm not even going to go down that rant again, rabbit hole, whatever in the world. But it's like the pimp is willing to, like, go out of their way to, like, get somebody clothes who needs clothes. They're willing to get your hair done, whatever in the world. Tell you some stupid little bull crap and whisper some sweet nothings in your ear to make you feel better. about yourself. And the pimp is willing to do that, but the person that's not a pimp that claims that they're a good person isn't willing to do that. And generally only predatory people or people that aren't really in the predicament to be helping somebody and are kind of risky are willing to help other people because they're in the same predicament or they know how it feels because they've been in that position before. The people who are in a predicament to really help people, they don't want to get involved. They don't want to quote unquote get in trouble or get accused of something. They don't want to go to jail with their parents as if your parents are going to go to jail for anything anyways. But anywho, what else did they say? That's none of my business. If I didn't already say that one. Generally they really just don't want to be burdened with the situation. They don't want to be involved in the drama. And that's how it all goes. Like even with what's now being called elder trafficking, which is so funny because when you're like getting molested and stuff and people are like in weird old people are like chasing you down the street jerking off and stuff like that, then you're told respect your elders in these weird flipped around religious doctrines. But if people really respected their elders, then the elders wouldn't be homeless on the streets anyways. It's all mind games. And it makes me think back to this one thing. People treat each other how they treat the Most High, and it's all manipulation. Like, people are always talking about the 48 Laws of Power, which is an occultic book that's really popular in like masonry and different things like that. They talk about alchemy, not the chemist witchcraft, not that type, but like the out of trauma comes power and like becoming powerful behind trauma and being tortured and stuff. They talk about how that's bad, but like literally everything is about manipulation. From the Hegelian dialect to the universal laws, divide and conquer, order out of chaos. In fact, I've been thinking a lot the past 2 months how what people call the quote-unquote narcissist prayer, it really goes into the bystanders, the flying monkeys, the let me help you lunatics, all the people that say it's none of their business. The narcissist prayer is like the religion of the world. Literally, people are all generally manipulative and everything is about manipulation. Just like that dude said, like I talk about in, like I show the screenshot in the nobody gives a crap about anybody. Quote unquote, everybody's being used unless you're useless. And honestly, that's true. Everything is a game. That's why Masons are always talking about the checkerboard and stuff like that. And there's Masonic checkerboard tiles, which also stands for duality. But just like the game of life and the chess game, if you're not, what's that thing that I say? If you're not running the cult, you're a part of the cult. If you're not running the plantation, you're the slave, whatever in the world. There's so many different ways to put it, but everything is literally a game. Everybody's playing games with everybody. Never let people convince you that they supposedly would help you and would care or would have cared. Because that's like a big thing that's being pushed down people's throats right now. With the fake social justice warrior bullcrap, and still people generally don't care. Nobody really wants to talk about the issues that aren't even new issues, that is like decades old information that people have talked about since Enoch was living in the cave and all that bullcrap. Like, it's all just games. And then it's like, one of the most annoying things to me about all of it is like, oh, now it's been confirmed, so now we give a crap. Supposedly, maybe, possibly. Only if it's happening to a woman or a girl. It's all bullcrap. And then, what else? Actually, no, this is a good example, which I was taking notes on this because I wanted to make a video about bias in general. So, there was this whole shebang with like this exploitative clip of like some homeless people. Seemed to be in this clip like some DID trafficking victims. But anywho, there was this one lady who was like talking to the MPDs or the demons or whatever, and somebody was like, I feel bad because she's really pretty. And then somebody was like, if she wasn't pretty, would you feel bad? No, they wouldn't. And that's how that goes as well. In fact, the lady who was claiming she was gonna adopt me, but then like left me for this dude, long story.
I remember she was even talking about how, like, she was going to supposedly advocate for homeless people because she knows that, like, people listen to people that they think are pretty, and that if she was to advocate for homeless people, people would fake care, really. It would really be fake care, but they would supposedly care because, oh, yeah, she's really hot, so now I care. But it's like, all that stuff is still bullcrap, though. But, like, I mean, yeah, people think that, like, you're hot, or they think that, like, you're a good-looking kid, like people like to say. Stuff like that. Then, like, I mean, they'll pretend to care. Maybe they'll, like, donate something for you to, like, help somebody. But it's still all so fake to where it's kind of like, what in the world? What's even the point? I know this person was able to get out of, like, some really risky situations with police behind, like, them, like, just seeing her as, like, attractive. But it's still also fake. Like, I remember when I was in Cali, there was a situation where this dude was like, I wish I was a cute little girl so people would care about me. And I mean, yeah, when you're a dude or you're like a boy, you're always going to be like treated worse, especially like in these situations where people claim that like they supposedly care about women that are in them, but the guys deserve it, I guess, or something. Weird stuff like that. But still, it's like that's not even really all that true. Like, I mean, if you're younger, or like if you're, I mean, even if you're a dude, because like, I mean, so many people are like, they like dudes and they like kids anyway, so it's kind of whatever. They like transgender kids especially. So it's still kind of like some DL. They're trying to pretend that they wouldn't like guys like that. But, I mean, yeah, when you're younger, like, you're a female, or like you're a younger guy, people will sometimes be nicer to you when they like want to like have sex with you or whatever. Like, I've had situations
And it was below 15 degrees and snowing. And I know it was 15 degrees when I was in NC, and it was warmer than it was in NY, so I guess it was below that.
Like, I was able to eventually be allowed into the McDonald's, but I was also able to like talk them into like letting the other homeless people stay in the McDonald's so we wouldn't like all freeze to death, because the security dude wanted me to marry him. And so, I mean, like, yeah, there was some leverage there, but it's like, it's not for a good reason. I was his quote-unquote wife to keep me and other people from freezing to death. But it's still kind of like, I mean, I don't really, it's not like a good thing, but I get what the dude means, though. Like, it's pros and cons, like, especially in these, like, white areas that have, like, let drug issues get out of hand, and, like, they don't police it, and it's all legal, and they're, like, doing harm reduction, white on white crime, and giving out needles and heroin, and killing each other from that. Like, they're on some YN type stuff with heroin. In areas like that, I mean, yeah, there's definitely, like, a lot of older people, and even some younger people, that have, like, been on these substances for so many years to where they kind of look, like, not conventionally attractive, so they're going to be treated, like, even, like, worse. Like, I even remember this one street kid girl, she was talking about how hotels often have free breakfast, and how, like, whenever you don't belong somewhere, just pretend that you belong there, and, like, you can get away with some stuff. And this one dude was like, stuff like that works when you're still young and you're a kid, but, like, once you get older and you, like, have cuts and bruises all over you, it doesn't work anymore. So, like, pretty much once you, like, look like the stereotypical homeless person, you can't, like, just, like, walk into a hotel and, like, get the breakfast and pretend that you belong there. So, like, I mean, yeah, with stuff like that, once you, like, look, like, really druggy, or maybe you just look like the stereotype, then, yeah, you definitely don't look like a cute little girl anymore, or whatever. I feel like if you're a guy, that will often not matter anyways, especially if you're, like, a melanated guy, and people are always gonna, like, treat you different and treat you, like, really badly. Like, I've gotten into, like, a lot of bad situations behind people supposedly thinking that I'm a quote-unquote black boy, but even people thinking that, like, I'm a Mexican boy when I was in Cali, because I was always getting told that I needed to go back to Mexico. The point is that it's all fake. Also, something else that I didn't even think about but just thought about. People don't care about street kids, but they'll pretend to care about street kids that are homeless with parents sometimes, and they'll, like, make these out-of-spite CPS calls to, like, try to get the parents in trouble, and they'll, like, try to get the kid into the system so they can go be homeless in CPS custody and go be trafficked and molested by strangers and actually get abused. And that's also really interesting. Like, if, like, a boy is kicked out or whatever, people just be like, oh, well, he deserves it or whatever, or he's lying or whatever in the world. But if he's homeless with, like, a parent, all of a sudden, they pretend to care, but they really don't care. They just, like, have some homeless hate towards the parent. And so they're, like, making punishment CPS calls and putting people's lives at risk. But if the kid was homeless by themselves, they generally wouldn't care. Or they just, like, still make, like, these out-of-spite 911 calls to, like, get the kid locked up. It's still, like, whatever. But that's also an interesting thing. Anti-male thing. I always think back
to the dude, but this is really common actually in LA, but specifically the dude that had to sell himself at 7 because his mom was always kicking him out and nobody ever cared because he's a boy, and he was always getting locked up for being homeless, even though like everybody knew that he wasn't allowed home, and he was pretty much like homeless since 7, which is actually, it's more common for people that are in CPS custody though than for like kicked out people. Generally, like, guys definitely do get a lot of this, like, suck it up type things bashed into their heads, but the masculine and feminine has been reversed for, like, some time now. Everybody's been turned out pretty much. So, I mean, it is, like, a lot of men and women are Jezebelic, especially, like, with quote-unquote white and black people. It's a lot of different ways that, like, manifests itself. But I definitely think of, like, the effects of this, the whole suck it up, I turned out fine thing, with like women as well, because that's where like the strong woman and the quote-unquote strong black woman bullcrap comes from. All of it is like some I turned out fine stuff, and I've always said since the abuse evidence channels and before, people will say I turned out fine just to like keep passing down the generational trauma, and not only that, they'll be like, I turned out fine, but they're attracted to children, they're an alcoholic, they're addicted to drugs, they have like DPDR and the usual other trauma symptoms, they don't know who they are, which is one of the biggest goals of the abuse agenda. They hold the people that mess them up in the highest esteem, like the Shane dude. His parents gave him the discipline he needed by molesting him, apparently. And so now he's in love with his own kids, and he gets the police to help him sexually harass other people's kids. And so now he passes that down, and it's just like a bunch of bull crap. It's all a bunch of bull crap. And then another thing with the bias is that, like, you're taught to, like, hold people above yourself. Well, it's actually weird. Like, you're taught to not give a crap about anybody else, while also still, like, being a codependent and like sacrificing yourself and being this fake martyr for other people, while still really covertly not giving a crap about anybody. Like the weird codependent type stuff, because all that is really manipulation unintentionally, but it's like you're really taught to not give a crap about yourself or anyone else. You're raised to believe that people who hurt you love you, and to be a professional domestic violence victim. And it's all just a bunch of games and lies. How does the saying go? Those who know, those who don't know. The more you know, the less you want to be alive. One's a meme, one's a quote from King Solomon. And I talk about both of those in my Whoopens is the New World Order video, which is in my dad's post playlist. And the thumbnail is the meme. The more you're a realist, the less you can really keep going and like even put up with the Matrix. People like to use the term fun in games, but there's no fun in the game. There's just tears. But it makes me think back to what this lady said when I was in Cali. She could burst out laughing or crying at any moment. And it makes a lot of sense. Everything is funny until it's not. And that's how you gotta cope with stuff. Or like somebody else said, did you have a good childhood or are you funny? But as I always say, there is no such thing as a child and there is no such thing as a childhood. Actually, no, I gotta throw this in here, because I feel like this situation is, like, such a big piece of the puzzle, and I've only ever heard, like, one person talk about this. If I can find the video, I'll put it in the description, but I know it was on TikTok, and it was, like, some young girl talking about it. But anywho, Lovely Peaches was literally a kid recording her being trapped. In fact, she had been getting trapped since she was a baby. But she was, recording like all of the horrors, and in fact even just the fact that like the whole I got STDs thing went viral, and she was a kid singing about like supposedly having contracted hundreds of STDs, even incurable ones, from being trafficked. And it's just so funny because, like, especially now with things like the minor crisis, you know, these are the types of people that, like, if that situation was to take place right now, people still wouldn't care because, like people are saying, one of the reasons that nobody cared about the whole Lovely Peaches thing is because, like, I know it sounds rude, but I get what they mean. She's
quote unquote black. She is overweight, and she's now people consider like conventionally attractive. And I know like it sounds like really, really bad, but like the point is really there though. If people felt like the whole "oh, she's so pretty, I feel bad" thing with the homeless lady. If people found her like what they wanted her to be pretty much, and she was like how they wanted her to be, then they would at least pretend to care, but the care would still be really fake. Like, people will still do these whole things where they're like, well, I believe that this person will turn out fine because they still have a spark in their eye, which that spark can disappear so quickly, especially if something really bad happens. Or the whole, what was I about to say? Oh yeah, I hope they get help and somebody comes along their path and helps them, but they're not gonna do it. So bystander effect type stuff like that. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I could say with the Lovely Peaches situation, but I just feel like it's such a good example of like how this bias works. Even the whole thing, a kid who's sexually acting out their trauma in somebody else will like get locked up and charged. Even I always talk about the thing of like kid victims get charged for their own essay. They get the quote unquote CP charge, but a fully grown person wouldn't even be looked at funny for hurting somebody or abusing somebody. Stuff like that. It's just like it's all so much bias, and that's why I really want to make a video just about bias specifically. But I've been taking notes because I'm really trying to actually finally make the video about why children of the corner are the good guys.
Then I'll put my video about the Billy situation that's titled "Homeless Kid Overtaken by the Cash for Kids System" or something like that. The Billy situation from Soft and Underbelly is also a good example of this. Nobody gave a crap about him because he's a boy and he's quote unquote black. People pretend to care about other kids off of there. He got a whole bunch of hate. Everybody wanted him in prison. He got more hate than any of the abusive parents that are shown on there, talked about on there, ever have or will get. I can remember there was this one comment that said he deserves to get as much love and attention and care as other kids on here. But of course, he was locked up and people have just forgotten about him.